Welcome, everybody. Steven, what the fuck just happened? No, welcome to the Alfalfa podcast. I am in Australia right now. It's morning.
GM, sir.
What time is it for you guys?
Good day.
All right. Good day.
G-day.
It's we should mark the time because events are moving quickly. It's 2:30 p.m. on Wednesday, November 9th. ETH is at 11:30.
Bitcoin
Yeah,
is
it's
in the
so it's been a hell of a
15s.
week. You guys have been much more in it. I've been doing work, and I need to get caught up on all this. Couple things. Our Discord is popping off. Don't forget to check that out and hop in there if you haven't already. The link is below in the description.
More of
And,
a support group now. It's nice.
It is a support group.
There were some really good live ideas while this was happening going on the Discord. People were kind of brainstorming first order, second order consequence of this. People were sharing some of their
Yeah,
trades and
how do
whatnot.
we play this?
Yeah, I
And
was
then
like, let's do this.
Short soul.
Yeah,
It worked.
One thing I'll
Way too long
tease.
to figure that out.
We'll talk about this next week. So first of all, my back hurts from not having my 8 sleep and not having my cooling mechanism. My sleep is highly affected right now.
Dang.
We been working out a little discount code for everybody and it's on top of that, it's Black Friday. So next week on the pod, we'll release that. And we got a special deal for the community plus the Black Friday sale. And we've already talked about 8 Sleep so much, but we're going to start talking about it more. So we'll have an official partnership there.
I might pull a
which will be
trigger.
sick.
I might pull a trigger.
But
You're gonna need to.
yeah, I guess if you're listening or watching, I mean, feel free to start researching and get ready to to get one because you need to get one. It's life changing. And I miss mine dearly. I think it's the thing I miss most, other than my wife and puppy. And
I thought you were going to say
bed.
California burritos.
All right, are we doing an alfalfa round or just jumping right into this?
That's right. Wait, Armand, you're not drinking anything, right? So you're going.
I'm having a triple shot latte.
Ooh, is that a flat white, mate?
No, I needed more, so I got a fucking latte.
I'm having a triple shot mezcal.
Let's that's beautiful. I think we should just do a collective how are we playing this right now? Let's just
Okay.
You get any
That'll be our alfalfa
Get any
round.
strong idea? Yeah, let's just do a collective. Holy God! If you're listening to this and you live in a hole, obviously everything is nuking, bad. I think it's the worst day I've ever seen, or worst 2 days.
It's a 2-day
I've
thing
ever
because
seen.
we had a 20% broad down day, and then I closed my shorts thinking oh, well, that was capitulation. And then sure enough, wake up in the morning and it's oh, another 20% down. I've never seen something like this happen before.
Well, I was telling you guys earlier. It's been no secret that I've been a little bit short ADA for a while, and I had a very large short position on FTX, and Monday, or I think it was Monday night, I made the decision to close that position and pull all my cash out, of which there was a substantial amount, and so I missed out on that short trade, but
But smart of you to take it out.
yeah, and I played some dips. I was able to short Sol on DYDX for a while, but the liquidity just dried up so much, and there's an insane spread between the futures and spot right now. Last I checked, it was $8 on the perp and $13 on spot, which is an enormous spread. And funding was negative 900% annualized. It's just wild. So I decided to just kind of close everything out and sit on my hands for a bit, watch how this is all going to shake out. I have a lot of interest in bidding if we sort of run those 1,000 or so lows that we had on ETH this summer. I remember we were on the Bankless live stream for the merge, and I was yelling at the people in the chat about how we're definitely running those lows.
Yeah, dude, don't buy this. Don't buy the merch.
And
You're pretty good on record saying don't buy the merch.
Some of them. I was mocked in the chat. I remember you. Actually, I don't remember your name. It was meaningless and not memorable. Be more creative. Yeah, it looks like that's coming. So I'll definitely be looking to play that as some sort of swing trade. I honestly don't know where to buy right now or when I want to buy. I'm still processing everything. So be curious to get all your thoughts on how you're approaching this right now.
I'm feeling pretty good right now. I have my crypto bag, basically my Bitcoin and ETH that I'll never sell. So those have been there this whole time. So yeah, those are down, but I'm not worried about at all about those. I'm a lot in cash. I still have my ADA short on. It's currently at 31 cents. I think I start closing it in the mid to low 20s cents, and hopefully it gets down to 17 cents ish. So that one should be a pretty good little clip if it actually happens. It could certainly reverse, and I could round trip, but we'll see.
Would you add to the short if we see a little bump here?
I feel good about the amount of money I risked in the bet from the start, so I feel okay. If I did, I would not use any liquidity, or sorry, not use any leverage.
What could go wrong?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't use any leverage on this, but
Compounding.
I mean, you're gonna see there's gonna be some kind of reflexive shift back at some point. I mean, we're in the capitulation event right now, so. I have bids set starting at think like just under $1,000, and they go all the way to the 700s. And I moved more cash into Coinbase to make sure those are set. And I'm very excited about those potentially hitting. And
That's funny you say that because I sold puts at 1,000, 900, 800, 700, 600, and I don't feel good right now.
Now that it's happening.
Yeah, now that it's happening. So I feel like I'm long term gonna love this level. I set those strike prices because I missed that like Suzu June dump. I bought not enough, and now I was like, I don't want to miss this one. And now that we're right in the throes of it, I'm like, fuck. But I'm gonna hold strong.
Always sounds like a better idea ahead of time.
Yeah. But I know, like I'm sitting here pragmatically remembering why I did it, and I am pretty excited about.
Are you guys thinking
scooping.
about buying anything other than ETH? Because like I am looking at some things. I don't want to pay more than the June lows, but I have a list: LDO, GMX, OP, DBL, Matic, maybe Sol. We'll talk about that. And some layer like options tokens on layer 2, like Premia, Dopex.
Interesting.
Maybe some Magic.
Premia is in my YOLO.
You're bound to get
list
some
for sure.
fanboy love from one of those tokens you mentioned.
So I decided I'm going to take 15% of the cash that I'm going to dump in this, hopefully even further capitulation event, and go to some of the higher beta stuff. I'll end up probably picking like 3 to 5 of them, and then just put
But
that.
don't you feel like this is going to be a pretty long bottoming process? It's not just going to be like wick down and then like, you missed your chance to buy
So,
Optimism or something.
I went back when ETH was $80 last cycle. I think it was what? End of 2000 or no? Yeah, pre-2019 to end of 2018, maybe. I have to go back and check the chart. And anyway, it was in the $80 range for a full week. It was up and down, but like it did sit
But
there
what
for a
about
few
like
days.
the alts? That's what I'm more interested in the alts, and I'm particularly interested in the kind of the deep cuts you're mentioning, because I wasn't around during the last crypto bear cycle, but what I did notice is that like the big coins that were the players in that last bear are no longer things. They don't exist really anymore. So I'm thinking that the ones that we want to scoop might not even be the ones that we're looking at now. They might just be like new pop-up
Well, a lot of
projects.
these that I mentioned are newer.
Yeah.
Optimism,
Yeah,
Lido,
true.
GMX, even like Premium Dopex are very new.
Yeah, those two in particular, I think are cool.
I think, a couple coins on your list. I think there's an interesting thesis to play with like the Arbitrum ecosystem. And the thing about it is like, I'm not super interested in adding to micro cap shit coins right now, but you got to think like it's pretty easy to play these sort of like, I don't know if I would call it delta neutral, but like it neutral to the beta of ETH, right? Like you could buy these coins and then like go short ETH, right? You could play them on like a relative basis to ETH. I think it could be an interesting play. One thing that's difficult with ETH is that it is like used as collateral in so many places. So it has like a lot of forced selling attached to it, like during times of the like crisis like this, because people get liquidated or people just have to sell and that's what they have. Sometimes with these like uber micro cap, like total shit coins, like they bottom like way earlier. Like people just dump them and then they're done. Like they're not being like nobody's using premia as collateral to borrow anywhere. It's like such a micro cap shitcoin. So you may end up in this like kind of Goldilocks period, I think, where if you kind of time the Arbitrum ecosystem release right, and you're a bit of like a trader, like you can kind of make these kind of pair trades, I think, on the ecosystem, and probably do pretty well. So I've definitely got my eye on that, but not right now.
I have a question for Armand. In the past, you had mentioned that you wanted a little more Bitcoin in your portfolio. Maybe just might have been a personal situation. You're just underweight, hadn't had a chance to buy some. Is that still kind of your on your like sets? Like if you have the chance, would you buy some Bitcoin here? Would you buy ETH? Would you buy both?
Yeah. So first of all, I feel like the fucking crypto haters are in heaven right now. I mean, this is such a big deal, and I do want to like zoom out and talk about that
Let's
like
do it.
a little bit, because I think we're in our little world and we're like crypto's on sale and we're going shopping and here's another opportunity, what we didn't get to do earlier this year. But like the rest of the world is like, look at that little shit pile of bullshit coins and
Look how
scams,
terrible
and
DeFi
of
is.
course,
I mean,
and
for
look
the
at the
record,
one that was
I do think it's over. So
what's that?
for the record, I do think it's
You're
over.
talking about
Yeah.
TradFi guys, right? Like the boomers
I'm
and
talking
whatnot.
about anybody outside of like crypto or anyone that was even a little bit apprehensive.
I feel
and
like
might
even
be an owner.
Bitcoiners are kind of like,
Even Bitcoiners.
like,
That's what I'm saying. Like there's a lot of people within crypto and mostly the people outside of crypto that are just like,
Especially.
whoa,
well, yeah.
that's
I
all
feel
I
like
needed to
Bitcoiners
see.
pride themselves by saying that they're not crypto. Like
They're basically just a bunch of "I told you so" people.
But
Yeah.
I want to support Armand's point that like an episode like this really sort of cements the reason why something like Bitcoin deserves a portfolio allocation. I think it's like, man,
That's been the discussion here the last couple days, is just like, this road is leading back to Bitcoin. Interesting. Especially with everything just going on, geopolitically and more, it just seems to be like, okay, that's an important play here. But outside of that, it's more just like, I think the perception of crypto in general, the fact that like one of the most highly regarded exchanges, the celebrity figure of crypto overnight has completely crashed and died and burned. Like it's really bad. Like, I don't think we're like, I don't know. I just think it needs to be highlighted a little more, like how bad this really is for the space, for the perception, the fact that somebody can become the darling of this entire space, who was supposed to have such an important future shaping. Last week he was helping shape regulation, and then this week he's gone, might probably going to jail. I mean, it's like very, very like stark contrast between weeks. It's wild. He was literally debating Bankless and like talking about regulation, and everyone was mad at him. You're not the guy we want representing us. And then now he's definitely not representing us. He's gone. Like it's over.
I mean, to your point, like where people are like, we don't want you represent. Like, I feel like all the crypto OGs, everybody I know who I consider to be like a very savvy person, has like not liked this guy for a long time. There's been
Yeah,
like
I'm not a fan
SBF memes, SBF to jail memes going around in my group chats for like well over a year now. Like, because a lot of the stuff he did that is now coming a little more into the public consciousness, like has been sort of known to insiders for a while. And also I think people who have been in the space, like just have this built in, like, where they have like this aversion to like idolatry and like putting these people on pedestals, and just the belief that ultimately like all these people ultimately will come and like stab them in the back, because it's been basically true for the entirety of the space. So I think it's like really shocking to newer people in the space before, for sure, and it's not as shocking to older people in the space. I do agree with you that it's terrible. I think it's I think it's the worst thing that's ever happened.
Is there
Well,
anything, is
by
there anything
far.
to glean from the guy himself? Like the guy that we saw stand or sit down in front of Congress with his shoes untied, like disrespecting the whole process.
I was thinking about that. I was laying in bed last night. I'm
and
like,
then we're shocked that he doesn't respect his
I've
depositors.
always
like,
thought that was such a bullshit act. This like, oh, look at me. Like he very obviously always had a very carefully curated PR sort of thing going on, where he's being carefully curated as the guy who was not carefully, he was like he's
and
trying
at the
so
same
hard to be
side,
like
I
that.
also held that he was very smart and very obviously ambitious, but also smart, not just like raw IQ, but also smart business wise, which that's why I thought the same. I was like, this guy is a little too smart and for this like effective altruism thing, and he may still believe that truly. His intentions may be good there, but the PR part kind of didn't sit right. But yeah, I don't know. I think all of us got fooled. I was just like my jaw was open when I woke up yesterday and I saw that this had transpired. I was blown
do
away.
you think there's a theme as well? It's like something that I've noticed as a relative latecomer to crypto, where it's like this whole machine just seems to just correct hubris, and like hubris turns into greed, and then greed just gets corrected.
That's why it seems like Sailor's next.
Sailor
And it does seem like he's
ultimate.
kind of untouchable.
But how does he get next? Because I don't think there's
Great
like
questions. But it's like you never see it coming. Like nobody saw Suzu coming,
Or
right?
FTX, really. Like even a day before FTX, I was like, nah, that's not.
Well,
gonna
he's
happen.
got convertible debt, like convertible bonds that he borrowed money to buy Bitcoin.
Maybe
but
it's
like
something else. Maybe he like
all that happens in
maybe
that
he like
scenario.
kills a guy next week and he runs off to El Salvador with the multi-sig and like. all
But people
the
are like,
Bitcoins
is
just gone.
Sailor going to get liquidated? I'm like, how? Like
The
worst
thing
case that happens
concerns
is
me-
those bondholders turn into equity holders.
But what
right?
if the equity goes down and people are selling, even knowing that it represents Bitcoin, but they don't actually hold the Bitcoin? We know it's not your keys, not your coins. Like
I mean, he does have some liquidation type thing at like 4K or so, right?
Right.
I don't
Which
know the exact.
he has
structure of it. It
they
is
have more
structured
money. They can
weird.
put more money up.
Yeah,
Armand,
they could.
we cut you off. What were you saying?
No, I just like I don't know. Like I get concerned about all this stuff like pretty deeply. I'm like, even if we're not big fans of SBF, or if a lot of people are like, all right, Sailor's next, that would be really bad if Michael Saylor like fell off of his
Only in the
mantle.
short.
Like
Only in the short.
I think it's maybe, I don't know. Like I guess my deeper question is like, what does this mean for the space as a whole? What does it take for? What does this mean from a regulatory perspective? If like second biggest exchange like this happens to, people losing their deposits, what does this mean for the future of the space as a whole? But back to the initial to touch on it. Yeah, I am like buying here. Nick, I mean, fucking 60. Are you kidding me? Like I wasn't sure yesterday, but today, I woke up here. It's 9:30 in the morning. Like 1,600 ETH. Are you fucking kidding me?
yeah.
I mean, excuse me, 16,000 Bitcoin and 1,100 ETH. Like that's just wild. But I also have like some alts on my list. Like I want Sol, I want Matic, I want Doge, I want more Wool, Curve, Ape, SNX, Stacks, DBL. These are all things that I just generally want to carry. Some of those are just like pure gambles. Others are things that I actually want to hold going into the next bull run. And obviously that could be years from now. But things that I think will survive medium term.
I kind of have this trope in my head that I would never buy alts first, and I would I'm just buying ETH here, and I'll buy alts later. But I don't know where that came from in my head. Do you guys have that similar thought, or are you, during this capitulation event, would you buy both at the same time?
No.
I almost have no interest in like these lottery tickets right now. I think like lottery tickets are fun to play in a bull market, but like in this environment, like I don't want any part of it.
You got time to play them, is what you're saying too.
Did
Totally.
you,
And I
did
think-
you
I
go
think it's
through
real.
2018?
Yeah, I mean,
If you've experienced like buying the dip on a coin down,
Then they go down-
-80%, and then having it go down another 50% 3 more times, then like you pretty quickly start like thinking you really want to buy like alts. And
so that's where it came from. The dark
That's-
recesses of my mind.
Yes. Yes, it came from deep scars.
Trauma,
that-
yeah.
deep trauma. Buying things that just go to zero. Not a good time.
Can we talk Solana a little bit real quick?
Yeah, I think Solana's
Like,
Can we get a price update on Solana right now?
That's what I'm saying. Like that's in my list.
yeah, so
it's like
we
$3.
were talking about this before we
$13 right now.
Wait,
Wow.
that's what I meant. Yeah, 1356.
Yeah. At what point would you step in?
Well, I originally shorted Solana at like 50 something. It went down. I closed it out, whatever. And I was saying $23 was like where I think it would end up. Now it's well below that. And people are saying Solana is dead. And they probably said that about ETH when it was at $80. So
Yeah.
Can we talk about just the fundamentals, not necessarily the price, but like is Solana?
What's the drawdown from all-time highs at this point? It was at like 200, and now
It's close to negative 95% now, I think.
That's pretty good.
Want me to hear? Let
Pretty
me,
good pullback.
dude. I can't.
Yeah, like,
I
what's
have
the
to
difference
zoom
between
out on the
95?
chart so far to be even. Oh my god!
But
It's
from
like-
95% to 99%,
If
still
you
down
if
bad.
you think something is going to recapture its
Negative
all-time
95,
highs,
exactly.
like what's the difference? 95 versus 98%.
the difference
Who
is
cares?
losing half your capital.
Yeah, and you can like double your coin.
Short term.
Well, you can double your coin
You
holdings
could
if
buy
it goes
twice
down to
as
like
much.
if it goes down to $7. You know, that's nice.
Yeah.
I'll buy it at $3.
I am sort of like I think there's some differences between ETH and Solana that are worth pointing out. Like ETH did not have this enormous like VC like kind of insiders. I know Bitcoiners will like yell at me for this, but like the amount of like VC money, not just in Sol, but in the Sol ecosystem as well.
Are they still
Just-
in? Because they're all tourists. Are they still holding? You think, or you think they're
They're
all?
still just have enormous bags, and
think
then
so?
like the number one guy that was propping up the entire space, the entire ecosystem,
just
is
got
like
liquidated.
gone.
But what does
right?
that mean? Can you be more specific when you say propping up the entire ecosystem?
Look,
Like
when-
were they just supporting price, or you're saying they were supporting, you know,
Validator nodes.
yeah,
Look-
validate exactly.
Look,
that
I,
kind of
I
thing.
think like new crypto investors should like grab their head around this concept because it's a super important concept. Like the vast majority of the Solana, I'm not going to say the vast majority, but a large chunk of the Solana ecosystem was basically like a hyper financially engineered like VC scam, right? You run this like playbook where you get in early on this coin, you get these discounts, and then you do are you guys familiar with like fully diluted valuations versus like the market cap? So you have like a market cap, like Maps is a good example of this. Maps, like the dumbest thing I've ever seen in crypto, maybe. Actually, that's a bridge too far, but it's pretty stupid. So that was one of the things on the Alameda balance sheet. I was like, what Maps and like Oxy. But last I checked Maps, and it's probably lower now, but it had a $5 million market cap and a $1.1 billion fully diluted valuation.
Stop.
Maps, Oxy, Serum, all of these Solana ecosystem coins were engineered so that the VCs would kind of get in early, and then you control the supply, right? So that a market maker can easily prop up the price, and then it allows these guys to just dump over and over and over again over time. And then the other dirty trick that they play is they'll go like, oh, well, the tokens are locked. And the tokens are locked, but what they do is they allow them to stake this gigantic bag of locked tokens, and then they just get this like cash flow that they can keep dumping and
and they
dumping
can
and
dump
dumping.
the newly issued coins.
Yeah, and when you've got like Alameda and FTX, like all these guys with all this money, they are incentivized to keep that price up so that they can keep distributing it at high prices. And it's much easier to do if you like artificially engineer this like really low float, right? Because you can like even if the coin's got this infinite supply, if only a tiny amount is actually circulating right now, you can prop that price up. So there's so much of that like trash and bloat.
What
and
about
absolute
like
blood
maybe
in the ecosystem?
topic for another money episode? But like, do you see any examples of this that still exist that are shortable on DYDX or?
No, I think the market came to this collective realization a while ago, right? Like if you went to sort of short some of these tokens on like any of these Solana protocols, even in like 2021, like some of the borrow rates were insane. Like you'd have like 130% borrow rates on the token because people just sort of realized at a certain point that they are just engineered to just go to zero. They're basically free shorts, especially if you sort of like hedge out with something else there.
I'll throw a IMX in there and shout out to the Bankless newsletter, the paid version. I got this like a week before I think it started circulating, but they have a pretty big supply unlock, which I think is starting right around now and continuing for a while. So that could be an example of something you're saying where there's a massive supply unlock.
But you can't short it anywhere.
You could go short in FTX maybe. I don't know where. Not in DYDX. I definitely looked once I read the newsletter. I was like,
You know, there's a good shit coin that I timed pretty good is Mana, Decentraland.
Yes, Decentraland.
I'm borrowing that on Aave. And that's
and you already sold it. You
No,
borrowed it,
I
sold it.
borrowed it and sold it for USDC.
I'm glad you did that. That was something we talked about a while ago as like an interesting long-term passive play, like using your ETH or whatever on Aave to just kind of borrow.
Right.
Like there's quite a few.
So
of
I
those,
intended
like, total crap
to
coins.
borrow Mana against ETH, but then I was like, I'm just going to do it against dollars. So yeah, I'll probably do it again. Like that is a shit coin.
Well, let's get back to Sol because it sounded like Armand, you were sort of bullish on Sol and you want to accumulate some. So I'd like you to shill me why.
I just think, well, yeah, it's been propped up by VCs. That's the shit that makes me super cynical in general about crypto, though. So it's the thing I hate most about crypto because I think it's just like a slightly better version of the traditional finance system that we had, and slightly better is not good enough. Like we have to do better than that. So that's a whole other topic. But in general, I think, every cycle you see more things that survive and go onward until the next cycle. And some of those will be lottery tickets. But I mean, we're down so much, 95% on some pretty great stuff that has a decent likelihood of survival going into the future. So to me, Solana is one of those things that, like, if there was going to be one that didn't go to zero, it outside of Bitcoin and Ethereum, it's that. And maybe Doge. Honestly, and by
Doge
the way,
much better
thank you
buy,
for
I know.
coming. Thank you for coming around to Doge last week, Stephen, because I've been saying that for a
Oh,
long
I came
time.
around to
So-
Doge a long time ago.
No, not publicly on this podcast, nor directly to me in any shape or form whatsoever. I have been the only
think
one
you-
talking about Doge,
I
and I
agree.
get annihilated every single time I bring it up.
I think Steven had considered the idea rationally about Doge, but I think now you're actually like more on board. I think you've like maybe teetered over
Because of your favorite
Holding my
entrepreneur.
ground.
I've been kicking around the idea of Doge
I think you're right,
as, like
Armand.
having some sort of like mimetic value since like early 2021 after the crazy pump that happened and everything. And I've been thinking about buying it as a part of my long-term bags for a while. It's just never gotten to a point in this cycle where I felt comfortable buying alts, and I went through a couple points where they like ripped, and I was like, "Damn, I'm stupid." But then
Well,
they all come
it's
back
interestingly,
every time.
we're back at the pre-Twitter Elon, pump almost. So like, I don't know, looks pretty good to me right now.
Yeah, I like unironically think it's like one of the top 5 coins maybe to hold in like a long-term bag, not in like a large percentage.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah,
sort
please
of
clarify.
get why it exists, and it does feel like its own sort of niche in a way that like Bitcoin fills its own sort of niche that like nothing else really falls into the category of. Although there are a lot of like imitators, so I get it.
It's one of the best, probably potential medium of exchange crypto coins. I think
It actually is.
I
It
think
literally
it's
actually is.
just dog shit. I
Well,
don't want to
just
put any
because,
of my
like,
money in it.
There's businesses that have chosen to accept it, like the Dallas Mavericks, Tesla,
Yeah.
Twitter in the future.
I mean, that's fine. If I have to buy some Doge to like tweet later at some point, that's fine. But I'm not going to consider it an investment vehicle.
Well, hear me out. Like the main thing I used to kind of like Solana for was that I thought there was merit to sort of like investing in something that a lot of big guys with big bags had, and like it wasn't a very crypto thing, but it seemed to me like a very tech thing, and like I can kind of get behind this idea, and I can ride this sort of like different approach to doing this in like a hyper centralized way that might be better for users and also has these guys backstopping it. All that's gone for Solana now, as best I can tell. So that part of the thesis is kind of dead to me. But I think Doge is capturing a little bit of that. Like if it becomes something that like a bunch of billionaires want to throw their weight behind, and you think it might get integrated with like potentially like the, someday one of the world's largest, like I think Twitter is going to grow in terms of its like reach and influence and functionality. So like I kind of get it from that perspective.
Twitter, Twitter private now, huh? I was gonna say, is Twitter
Yes.
equity a good long, but you can't
Yeah.
buy it.
You
I,
can't do
I
it.
don't know if like comparing Doge and Solana in the same conversation actually makes any sense. Like, I kind of view Solana like they sell block space, but it's like, and maybe Van Spencer was the one who mentioned this, but it's like the iOS or Apple versus Android situation. Like ETH is the premium block space, and Solana is probably like the Android of block space, and it services a certain type of the developer customers, because ETH has developer customers, and Solana will service a separate one that like to use Rust and want that type of block space, and will stick with the community and probably create some cool projects that will persist long term. But it's going to compete against, as far as new developers coming in, it's going to compete against Optimism and Arbitrum, I think, more. And I don't know if
Well,
I
I'd
don't know
like
if it
to
wins.
ask the newest developer in the room. Steven just started coding this week. Do you know any other blockchains that use Rust? Like, what are the other ones? Like, is Rust a language that you're interested in learning? Are you strictly interested in Solidity, or you going old school?
I mean, I want to learn Solidity. I'm still at the point where I'm, writing Hello World
Hello
programs
World,
in the JavaScript console. So I definitely want to get in there. I don't know what else uses Rust, to be honest. I have like a few programmer friends who I talk to about this once in a while, but like they are still trying to wrap their head around the crypto space in general. So can't give you too many great insights there, unfortunately.
Can we switch back to ETH
Sure.
after Solana? Little Solana
Absolutely.
chat. So can we talk about the differences or the probabilities of what we think $1,000 to $1,100 ETH versus $700 ETH? Because for me, this is a big thing. Because if it goes down to 1,000 and bounces back up, I buy nothing.
Okay.
If it goes down to 700, I buy everything according to my limit orders. So what do we assign the probabilities? Are these 700 high probability, medium, low?
So is sub 1,000 programmed? You think like sub 1,000 is a guarantee?
Because we're all
I
in the
don't think
Discord, we're all
it's-
talking
I
triple
don't
digit
think
ETH.
it's guaranteed, but I think the probability is very high. It would be
75%
the exact type of level that crypto would pull a gotcha on and like rug people at
And what would
1050 and never hit it.
why would that be? Is it just like this cascading series of events continues? We wake up to more bad news tomorrow.
Why
Like,
would we
what-
go lower than 1,000?
Yeah, like to 700 level.
I mean, I think we can go to 500s pretty easily. Like 500 ETH is very plausible, right? Like if you look at an ETH Bitcoin chart, right, which to me, like people say it's bullish, and to me it looks very like midterm sort of like distribution. Like there's like a lot of sort of selling at the top end of the range, not a lot of follow through. It looks kind of like the Bitcoin 2001 chart. It looks a little heavy, right? And it looks very like there's a lot of confluence on that chart to me to kind of like revisit range lows / this kind of long-term trend line. And that puts you at like 0.05. So if we get like,
ratio.
yeah, so if we get like 11,500 Bitcoin, which I totally think is in the cards, like that's going to put you in the 500s for
At $500 ETH,
That was my first buy price, by the way.
mine was 400.
Okay.
But I was like years after you. It just like that's how that tracked. But like at $500 ETH, I'm like gonna start growing my own food. Like I don't go out anymore. Like, I changed my lifestyle entirely.
I mean, I'm bidding everything at 420.69. I think it's still a pretty good meme bottom. But I'm not saying it'll definitely go there, but I think the probability is very high.
Whoa,
I do
hold
think
on.
that-
You're saying very high probability during this capitulation
Assign
event.
some numbers.
Because I'm saying it's like a 30 to 40% probability we go sub 1,000, like we hit
in
the
the next
700.
like 6 months.
No, I'm talking about this capitulation event, which
Oh no, I'm
couple
talking.
weeks
I'm talking about like where do we bottom?
What's the actual
before the
bottom
next
of this
bull?
cycle.
Yeah.
Okay, all right,
And I think both questions are equally interesting.
right. We have
I
to.
think this capitulation event, I would be surprised if we go below 800. Like I'd be shocked. I don't think that we just like see this thing just die in the next 17 days before my options expire. But like I do see perhaps like a much longer bottoming cycle playing out, where it's like we don't even have a recession in sight, and then when we ultimately do, maybe a year from now, it's like, oh God, everyone's just out of crypto. Nobody cares about this shit anymore. There's no activity on the blockchain, and it just slowly dies.
Yeah, I do think there could be a scenario where we don't hit those $700, $800 price points, but in a year from now, when we are in a real recession and people need cash, and we're a year and a half, 2 years into a bear market, that could happen.
I mean, if the guys that we follow, and even the words coming out of our mouth talking about like net liquidity actually matter, then like net liquidity is still really high from like a long-term view, and it might take a while before we like start to pull down liquidity, and then maybe we see that play out.
Let me bring this up, because I was thinking kind of on the similar lines 3 days ago. If you told me, are we going to go to the 700? I'm like, probably not, because there's enough money around to buy the dip. Like, I mean, in the Discord, everyone's talking about it. Like, everyone's talking like we can buy the dip, but now there's potentially like $20 billion of cash that is not in the ecosystem
that was
anymore.
all crypto money.
That's the first order amount of money. The second order ripple effects could be larger. So is there less liquidity specifically in the crypto community to not buy the dip if we start getting 1,000, 900?
I mean, the bigger first order effect that you skipped over, but is related to that, is that there are a lot of like funds and institutions with probably hundreds of millions of dollars in FTX.
Oh God, those
Those
markdowns.
funds, they're going to have to sell like Bitcoin. They're going to have to sell. Like, there's going to be a lot of forced selling. I think
that's happening now. You said it might continue on.
I think it's going to continue maybe for a while.
At what point does a bigger player than CZ step in, like a sovereign?
I think it is an interesting question, actually, even if CZ is sitting around with like a $5-6 billion bid under the market right now. I mean, I would be doing it if I were him. He has like a large amount of information asymmetry, and I think if you're like a very savvy macro person, I think you can like actually make a good argument for some sort of temporary bottom happening in Q1. There's going to be dynamics that change the at least dramatically change the rate of change of net liquidity after this year's over, right? You may have some tapering off of that drain. So the rate of change of liquidity drain dries off. The rate of change of Fed hikes dies off. This rate of change is really one of the big things for markets, as opposed to the absolute level.
Totally.
So there's
that can affect the narrative too.
it's like before this happened, I was getting ready to buy because I was like, man, there's really good confluence for some sort of like small capitulation events in stocks, equities, whatever. And then we go into Q1, and then I totally think this double dip scenario is like in play, where we have this temporary like roar for like all of 2023 until like the recession stuff finally does get priced into markets, in which case you could go back down in 2024, and then CPI is high again in 2026. Like, this is a long cycle that we have to kind of think about.
I have some bullet points to back you up here. Stuff we've gone over. So in terms of net liquidity, from now till year end, based upon the recent Treasury refunding announcement, they're going to suck $150 billion out from now till year end of liquidity. The Fed is going to suck up another 190 billion. The reverse repo facility is kind of slowly draining. It'll probably add back in 90 billion. So you're talking about net $250 billion of cash getting sucked out of the ecosystem, which I think Darius Dale equates that to roughly 3,400, 3,500 S&P. But
slightly down. It's not
huge.
Not huge at all.
Yeah. So I'm kind of rethinking when my puts, when I like, buy those back, sell those back, sell to close, essentially. And so I might sell to close around there. But he also pointed out that the Treasury general account said at the end of the year they're going to end up at 700 billion, which is where they're adding that extra 150 billion through the next few months. But then it's going to go back down to 500 billion, meaning they're going to put another 200 billion in the market.
Repo only?
No, sorry, that's the Treasury general account.
The general account. Okay.
The general account. And depending upon how money market funds, the flow of money market funds, and if people are willing to take duration risk, credit risk, that will depend on the reverse repo facility and how that reacts. But in terms of we've talked about how we potentially see recession coming. It's not priced in, but household balance sheets are still great. Credit card debt as a percentage of disposable income is the same as the pre-COVID percentage, 5%. Mortgage debt as a percentage of total household wealth is roughly the same. Total household debt out of household assets is the same. The mortgage effective rate is still in the 3s, even though the market price is in the 7s. The effective rate, the basically money averaged weight of mortgages is still in the 3s.
No credit risk is what you're saying.
Right. As of right now.
As of right now.
Corporate balance sheets are high. Here's one that we learned from 42 Macro: the 3-month, 10-year inversion. Right, that usually guarantees it's a 100% hit rate on a recession, but in the first 6 months, once that inverts from 0 to 6 months, there's never been a recession within 6 months of that first inversion. 6 to 12 months, 25% of the time, roughly, there's a recession, but not until you get 12 to 18 months from that initial inversion do you see the majority scenario, 63%, providing a recession.
So that inversion happened in October of last year.
Yeah,
right?
basically a couple weeks. No, that happened
October of this year.
Yeah, like a couple weeks ago, essentially.
Okay, so we're looking at end of next year for a real recession.
Yeah, the 2-year, 10-year was the one that started inverting.
Okay, the 3-month, 10-year. I got you.
Right, and if we look at positioning, retail's equity percentage of household assets are now still roughly around the average. They're at 31% compared to, if you look at the bottom at the GFC, retail as a percentage of household assets had 23% in equities in the GFC and 24% at the bottom of the 2001 recession. So there's still more to go because they don't need the cash.
Right.
So TLDR, I guess, is that the probability of an actual recession happening is actually farther out in the future than people think in the U.S. by a lot.
We're not heading into a recession anytime soon.
Yeah, and both corporations and consumers actually have extraordinarily strong balance sheets.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of cash.
Real quick, I misspoke earlier when I was quoting credit card debt, mortgage debt, household debt. That was all as a percentage of disposable income, not, I think I was saying household assets. It was as a percentage of disposable income. Those are the metrics, just to clarify.
So how about this idea of TINA? There is no alternative. This was a reason why stocks were zooming is because you had 0% interest rates on bonds. But now, even short-term treasuries are yielding 4%. So it's TINA turns into TARA. There are reasonable alternatives.
Right. New chick in play.
Tara?
Tara's in. I think that can act as a liquidity suck to our beloved degen assets, as sort of the big players say no thank you to the riskiest shit and just be I'll take my 4% treasuries on a 1-month basis. Certainly
plausible.
I mean, I still think we're going to see 6-7% unemployment, 20-30% drawdown in housing prices. But it just might take a while because we've had so much cash injected that it needs to get worn through. So, do we see this playing out where our risk assets, particularly ETH and its friends, potentially see some room to grow during 2023, but as the fundamentals of the economy start to actually deteriorate and there is credit risk, do we see them potentially going back down?
Yeah, that is my default assumption right now, is that people think the bottom is going to be way farther off than it actually is. They don't get in. Everything reverses actually pretty quickly, and then people just are in disbelief until they FOMO back in, right at the top at $3,000 ETH or whatever, just right before it goes because nobody has this programming, right, where we have these 8-month cycles in crypto, right? But that could actually
it's such a
happen.
rude dream.
that would really devastate.
I mean, you just
people.
switched my thinking a little bit. So instead of picking prices to limit order, should I time wait? Should I twap this? Should I just DCA like a certain amount every few days over the next, like, I don't know, 8 weeks instead of picking limit orders? Because right now, my $980 is 1 unit. My $920 price limit is 2 units, and it just doubles as it continues going down.
You should use a combination of both, right? Like
Okay.
twapping is fine as like a baseline, but then there's
Time
no
weighted
reason
average
to
price.
not have these like YOLO bids there. Like if you can get them, it's like a large mistake to not do that, and then you can just adjust the level of your twapping.
Because they usually cap it overnight while I'm sleeping. That's why I have them.
Wouldn't you want to sell the puts instead? Like get paid for the limit order?
No,
Well,
then you just- you don't make
there's not
as
enough
much.
liquidity. I can't for them. I guess, the bag I'm trying to deploy, I don't see the amount of liquidity I need to deploy that reasonably on some of these decentralized exchanges.
ETH in the ETH went into the thousands, by the way.
Just now?
Getting scary.
I
Getting
might need to
scary
leave this
out
pod
there.
and top up my account.
Yeah. I guess probably at the point where we want to wrap it up a
Close.
little bit. Yeah.
Can I throw in one thing?
Let me know if you have any burning.
Well, just this thesis about like we could see like a room to run, not a full bull market, but room to run in 2023 until credit risk starts to show up and the underlying economy starts to go. But I do have an outlying thing, which is oil. If we stop the SPR drain and China allows demand to come back and oil prices go up, then you see inflation kind of do this double top situation where like, it starts going up because energy prices, headline CPI goes up again. Then it's like, what is the terminal Fed funds prediction go to then? And so to me, that's the thing that could wreck this whole thesis that we're kind of all somewhat converging on.
I want to do a whole podcast on this because I want to consider just putting way more of my dollars into oil or into energy. Really, it's like
Yeah, I'm doing
just
that.
the
for
China
sure.
demand thing alone. Like they're at 0 right now, and that is going to turn back on in a big way.
So can we stick with this just for a few minutes? Like, how would we play this? Because you
So
actually
here,
looked at
I have
playing
a-
it.
I have a fact for you that I think will blow your mind. What do you think that, and this is 2 days ago when I looked, the December 2024 oil futures were trading at?
They're low, right?
70, 80 bucks,
70.
They're pricing in a massive recession.
70.
2024.
So
which is a force against what we're talking about. Like
Yeah,
if
that
true U.S.
kills
demand
demand, yeah.
goes down, then you
But
won't.
what
but
about
if
2020
oil goes to 200 a barrel this year, I don't think
Well,
that
what's
contract is staying
2023
at
pricing? 'Cause
70.
I think, I don't think anyone's on the Darius Dale point that like it's the end of 2023 that a recession hits. So like maybe that's the way to play it.
I mean,
I think you just play it with call options.
call
You just
options on
play-
individual stocks.
No oil.
But how do you do that? You buy
I mean,
futures
you buy-
contracts.
yeah,
you mean?
you could buy call options on futures contracts.
Okay, but you're not. I thought you meant options on individual stocks. So
Yeah,
futures
I'm just
contracts.
using
No.
XLE because I don't know the space.
I think if you want to bet on oil, then you bet on oil. I think when you bet on stocks, you get exposure to oil, but then there's all these other factors that are happening, right? I think if you have like a really strong view on oil and that's the thing you want exposure to, then just bet.
I've had some oil
bet on
stocks
oil.
since the price of a barrel of oil went negative in 2020. I put it in my what's it called? IRA. Yeah, my
you bought
retirement.
them. I
Yeah.
thought you put them in the maybe pile. You bought 'em.
No, I bought them. I was like, okay, so yeah, people are gonna need oil eventually. So I can't take this cash out till I'm 65. So we're gonna buy the fuck out of
I'm
those.
gonna throw soup on you. Sir.
yeah. Okay. So I just want to get that out of my system because I didn't want to wait till
All right,
another
cool.
episode.
I'm glad you didn't have to wait a week and explode. Armand, you got any parting thoughts for us?
No, let's wrap it. This
All
was
right,
great.
cool. Great episode, boys.
Um,
Enjoyed that one.
Very good.
Yeah, and please come to Discord. Like all this stuff's moving quick, and like I found it particularly not only helpful but fun when this stuff happens to like be able to jump in there and just talk about it and just express like sometimes disbelief, but also burning questions and need clarifications. There's a lot of smart people in there, so I found it useful. I think other people in the community do too. So yeah, if you haven't, now's a good time to kind of get a taste of it if you're interested.
Hell yeah.
Cool.
100%.
All right.
All
See
right.
you on the other side.
Love you guys. Bye.
Later, boys.
Peace.